Hey guys, I'm here today to talk about running mechanics and some drills you can do to improve your technique. I know we're running a lot more than we have been all winter, and headed into the summer I know we'll be running a lot more. So I want to share with you guys some things you can be doing to improve your technique and feel more efficient running. I'm going to talk about body position first. I'm going to talk about kind of what's going on with your feet, and then we'll talk about some drills to start working the proper mechanics of your leg movement. And I'm going to say this a bunch, but if you ever have any questions about running, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to help you. I love running, so anytime you want to talk about running, I'm there. I'll help you out. So let's get started first talking about body position. A main mistake I often see, especially in CrossFitters, is this idea that the body position is either too far back or it's forward but in a broken pattern, so the hip is broken and stuck back, and then you're kind of running hunched over like this. What I want to see is I think of myself as like a plank, and not necessarily we're in the plank position, but you want to keep your body straight and solid like that. And some people say to lead with your hips and some people say to lead with your shoulders, but the idea here is that we want to shift your center of gravity forward so that you're basically needing to catch yourself. So if any of you have gotten your handstand walks down, it's kind of the same thing. You have to find where that center of gravity is and shift it forward, and then your feet will inevitably follow. So I often think about when I'm teaching this, I like to think of my shoulders coming forward, but again, I need to keep my hips solid so that I'm not pushing my shoulders forward like this, because then you're shutting down the diaphragm here if you're kind of crunching in too much. So keep that body straight, and whether it's you're thinking about your hips forward or your shoulders forward, think about falling forward, and then you can see if I let myself go far enough, the only thing I can do is step out to catch myself, and that's actually a great way to start that running form. So another thing to think about with body positioning is you want to think about, I don't want to talk too much about arms because I think that isn't going to give you a lot of bang for your bucks to focus on that, but as CrossFitters, we are often tight in our traps and our pecs, and it kind of gives us this hunched over feeling, especially after you've done something with your arms, you've done a bunch of wall balls and you're going on a 400-meter run. I see a lot of times that people will kind of be crunched in and running like this, and if you think about that, your diaphragm is getting crunched down, so you're doing something taxing and then you're crunching down and not being able to get a full breath. So think about your shoulders back and down, and I just want those arms to be relaxed. One thing with arms I don't want is necessarily this crossing motion, because you're just wasting a lot of energy side to side. So think about them going forward and back. Most people have a little bit of a you're fine, a little bit of a cross, but if you can think about that forward and back motion with your shoulders down and back, then that will kind of keep your diaphragm opened up so you can get a good breath. So those are the two things position-wise that I wanted to focus on, making sure your center of gravity is moving forward and your shoulders are back. And I know that sounds contradictory, because if I want your shoulders forward for that body position, but them also down and back, it's just I want your chest to be leading with that body position, but those shoulder blades down and back so you can have an open diaphragm. So next I want to talk about your feet and kind of what's going on here. And I want to talk about this kind of in the context of double unders, or I want to start there. Because when you double under, you're on your toes. So you're imagine I'm double undering, I'm on my toes. I'm never on my heels, right? I can't really jump. I mean, I can jump, but I can't jump at the speed that I need to be jumping for double unders on my heels. And if you watch, or you kind of think about yourself doing double unders, you may be a little bit more on your toes. You may be a little bit more on the balls of your feet. There's no right way, as long as you're getting that rebound effect from the jumping motion. So that's kind of what we want to think about in running as well. You kind of want that rebound effect from your foot and your calf, and like the elasticity of that to be bounding you into the next step. So I think one of the common mistakes is people will almost try to extend their foot too far in front of them, and they land on their heels. And if you can see, like if I'm running repetitively like this, all this force is coming up into my knee and into my hip, which is like can lead to a lot of injuries, just like the compounding of that motion over and over again. So one way to think about this is to think about landing on more of like the ball of your foot. I'm not a huge proponent to say like, oh, you have to be toe running, or I think there's different schools of thoughts around that, and I think you'll naturally find what your correct landing on your foot is. But one thing to think about with this is where your foot is landing on, landing as your body's moving forward. So you can see if I'm gonna be landing on my heel, my foot is way far out in front of me. Where you actually want, as you're moving, you actually want your foot to be kind of right under your body. So one thing that I think about is, as I'm running, if I'm looking down like through my peripherals, if I'm looking down, I can just see the tip of my foot as it's stepping forward. If you're seeing much more of your foot, then maybe you're stepping too far. So just, again, I don't want you to like look down and search for it, but if you're looking forward and looking down, gazing down, your foot should not be coming too far in front of you. And it should also it shouldn't sound super heavy. So I think if you're landing on your heels, it's kind of this banging motion, and it should be more of a softer landing. So another cue you can do is listening for that. So that's kind of all I have to say about foot positioning and where that should be. To go along with that, if you are starting to incorporate running more, and not necessarily like between like 2s and 400s that we're doing in workouts, but if you're wanting to go like longer distances, it might be worth investing in some running shoes. I know Fleet Feet is doing like online fittings right now, or even if you just like look up a Nike or a New Balance or whatever it is, they're just a little bit more effective for supporting your foot for longer distances. And I've often seen people get like lower leg and foot injuries because they don't have the right shoes. So that's something to consider as well. So now I want to talk to you guys about a couple drills. But first we're going to just like break down the mechanics of what's happening in a run stride. So to slow this down, your knee is coming up as you're kind of falling forward, right? And then, like I said, your foot's falling right under your body as your body's coming through. This leg's behind, and it's going to, sorry, the football almost hit you. Your back leg is going to come up and bend, kind of like in a butt kick, right? Sorry, I'm having a hard time balancing right now. And then you're going to extend through and come back again. So when we have you guys do high knees and butt kicks, it's like a really great time to focus on a couple of these things, because that really is the motion. You're doing a high knee and a butt kick, not as exaggerated as we do in the gym for warm-ups, but those are a couple great drills. And when you're doing drills, I would say, like, don't do them for an extended period, like an extended distance. I would say, like 20 meters probably. So going kind of like we do in the gym, down and back, with high knees just starting. And when you're thinking about this, again, I want your knees to be driving up. You're focusing on that knee drive, but also that bound off your foot that we were just talking about. So you can see my knees are driving up, but I'm also getting that bounce from my foot. So that's like two things to be focusing on with high knees. And butt kicks, I'm just going over these real quick, and then we'll kind of get into some ones that maybe you guys haven't seen before. But butt kicks, I want you to be focusing on kicking your butt, again, pulling through with your hamstring as that leg comes up. and getting that bounce effect like we were just talking about. So those are two great drills to start with. But in reality, when you're running, you're not actually doing a high knee and you're not actually doing a butt kick. You're doing somewhere in between. And I've seen this called like an inseam kick. So you're more kicking up to like, you're not getting that full extension back like you would with a high knee. You're kind of kicking right where your inseam would be. So that I think is a really good drill to be focusing on. It's called an inseam kick. And the way I would start is to just bounce with both feet, and then you're gonna pull it in, pull that one leg in. And I would do it 5 to 10 times on one side and then 5 to 10 times on the other side. So it looks like this. I'll start bouncing and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it gives you that feeling of like where your legs should be coming up as you're going to be pulling it forward and through. The next kind of progression of that would be, I've had some of you guys do this before, and it feels very funny, and it takes a little bit of time to get used to it, and kind of like get the rhythm of it down, but you're going to extend that and pull your leg through like you would when you're running. So again, you're going to bounce and you're going to kick up, and as you kick up, you're going to come through. So bounce, kick up, come through, kick up, come through, kick up, come through, come through. So you can see I'm getting a little bit more forward motion with that as my leg is coming up and through. Again, these are more exaggerated movements than you'll be doing when you're actually running, but it can kind of get you in the rhythm of feeling like what your legs should be doing when you're running, because when you're tired in the middle of a WOD, it's easy to kind of get into this like shuffle routine, you know, and you can see my legs aren't doing much for me here. They're just kind of like catching me as I fall. Whereas if you can kind of get into a place where you're adding a little bit of that extra bend and step forward, it will propel you a little bit more forward. So this is me just shuffling along, and then I start picking up my legs a little bit more. And you can see just with that minor tweak and that kind of minor addition of that cyclical leg movement, it starts to propel me a lot faster. So I think those would be a couple great drills to be working on. Like I said, the high knees, the butt kicks, the inseam kicks, so where you're coming up like this, and then the inseam to the forward kicks. Like I said, those feel a little bit awkward. But I think that's going to be a great way to kind of start to get that cyclical pattern going. And then a lot of it is just like getting out and practicing, and seeing what feels comfortable for your body. And one thing I do have to say is, like, in the middle of a workout, it's easy to kind of be like locked up. Like I said, you want your shoulder blades back, like we talked about. You want to get those legs moving a little bit, and you really will feel yourself like start to propel forward once you've added a couple of those things in. But also let your body kind of be loose. Don't lock it up too much, because you really do want like a twist in your core as you're running. That kind of helps propel you forward as well. Just because the twist helps with the counterbalancing, and it all works together to move you forward. So with that being said, I think those are a couple great things to focus on. If you're trying them, like I said, I wouldn't do more than 20 meters. A cool way to maybe try it out would be you can do it in front of your house, you can do it at a track, whatever. But to try those and then just start running. And I think if you ran for like 30 seconds, not thinking about anything, and then pick one of the things I talked about today to focus on for 30 seconds, and then go back to 30 seconds, not thinking about it, and then think about it for 30 seconds, or whatever that time frame is. Because our minds for like a long amount of time can't actually think about a certain it's hard for our minds to focus on a certain part of a movement like running for an extended period of time. So pick one of those things, focus on it for a short amount of time, and then go back to kind of just like running without thought, and then add it in, and you'll start to feel the difference in your running by just kind of adding those thoughts in. If you are wanting to add distance to your running, and you're wanting to do like more than the 400s, 800s that we're doing in the workouts, and you don't really know how to progress with that, I would say kind of the same thing that I was just saying, but do like running and walking with time on and time off. Just because going out, like some people will be like, oh, I'm going to go out for a 5-mile run, and they haven't been running at all, and that's just setting yourself up for failure. Like a 5-mile run, any distance of running, if you haven't been running, is a long distance. So it would be better to say, okay, I'm going to go out, I'm going to run 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off, 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off, and then you can progress down 3 minutes on, 2 minutes off, 3 minutes on, 2 minutes off, until you get to a place where you feel comfortable with a certain distance. With that said, your body also, if you feel injuries coming up, please reach out to me. There can be a number of things that are common running injuries that I'm not a PT, but I can at least guide you in maybe where you should go for some help, or if it's just as simple as icing or taking time off, I can help you with that as well. So I think that's all I have for you guys today. I'm excited to see you come back and be better runners. And again, if you have any questions or any concerns or anything like that, please feel free to reach out. And I miss you guys, and I can't wait to see you back in the gym. See you guys.